All right. Well, thanks for listening in to another impromptu stream by yours truly, Sigma Jones, courtesy of YouTube. First and foremost, just want to give a shout out to the subscribers out there. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for tuning in. I truly appreciate the love and support. Hope you guys are doing well today. I know there's a lot that's going on. Shout out to Isaac Sama. He had a great stream on earlier today. I wish I had time to come through to jump in on that, but had to go get a haircut. So wasn't able to listen in to the stream, but definitely was able to catch a good portion of it. So shout out to you. Also shout out to the rest of the guys that's in the chat. D-Mac, Ace, Kwame Aid, Liam Johnson. Good to see you, sir. Haven't seen you in a while. Okay, so what prompted this impromptu stream? It's kind of been some things I've been hearing through the grapevine, as far as some special topics in regards to brothers traveling, brothers changing their image and everything. So I definitely wanted to give my input in regards to that matter. So I want to give a special salute to JJ Wilson, Phantom Clutch, Chris Owen, and Xanatos Clutch. Those guys kind of inspired this impromptu stream that I really want to touch on. And this could actually be a series in and of itself, because when it talks about culture matters, culture really does matter. Especially when it comes down to genetics. That's a topic and a science that I definitely enjoy getting it into and really sharing my thoughts on that. But we'll save that for another day. So, what I'm going to start off, I'm actually going to share a little story. And for those of you who were my subscribers back when I had an account on Free Speech Avengers, you may remember this story because I did a video about it. For those who don't, this will definitely be the first time you hear this story. But I definitely wanted to put it out there so you guys can kind of understand the message that I'm going to be getting with. Oh, no problem at all, Aiza-sama. But yeah, definitely great stream earlier today. So shout out to you. All right. So for those who remember, I made a video where I talked about when I had, you could say, my awakening, my red pill truth, red pill rage, whatever they call it nowadays. I've kind of shared a story where I had two of those instances, and it's kind of like one led to the other and the other led to where I am today. So to start off, the story begins back when I was in high school, and there was a girl who pretty much I fancied with. She was a grade younger than me, or excuse me, a grade below me and whatnot. I call her Miss BB. But what made Miss BB my interest, so you could say my crush at the time, unlike most daggles that came from single mother households, if I could be politically correct, Miss BB actually came from a two-parent household. And so she was kind of unique to where she was a black girl that actually have a father in the home. And what also made BB interesting is she was a quarter Blasian. Or I don't know how you would say a quarter Blasian, but in any case, her father is a full African American. Her mother was a Hapa being half white, half Asian. And so I guess you could say maybe a quarter Blasian, if we're talking about Miss BB. But in any case, she was somewhat mixed. So she was definitely physically attractive. That was kind of one of the things I fancied about her. But the main thing that really kind of had a crush on her is because we come from the same background, musical background, family background. There were subjects we had in common. So back in high school, obviously, I tried shooting my shot, and as expected, got turned down. No big of a deal. Being somewhat of a blue pill mindset, you could say, I thought, okay, well, if I be friends with her, maybe later on she'll come around. Maybe later on she'll see how great I am as a guy. So I know some of you guys probably be like, uh-oh, here comes the simp tales and the like. I have to agree. Looking back, there were some things I've done that I was like, why did I do that? But in any case, we would hang out at around lunchtime. We hang out after school, playing some music. Sometimes I give her a ride home. And even sometimes I'll even help her with her homework and whatnot. But in any case, this pretty much continued throughout most of high school. And once I got to college, it somewhat continued. So one day, I shot my shot again. This was probably like maybe the, I don't know, 5th time, 6th time. And so finally this time, usually when she turned me down, she was like, oh, Sigma Jones, I really like you and everything, but I don't know if I'm ready yet. It was just, as they say, a softer way of rejection. Well, this time it was a little bit different. This time when I shot my shot, she said, Sigma, I'm actually seeing somebody right now. And it caught me by surprise. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know you were seeing somebody. And obviously I was curious to kind of find out who this dude was, but she didn't go into much details. It was like, okay, well, hey, if you're seeing somebody, it is what it is. So this is like back in 2012. Yeah. So we had a musical jam coming up. Me being a musician and all, I was bringing my equipment, setting up with the rest of the musicians and all. And then here comes Miss BB. She walks in with this guy. And the crazy thing about it is she was locked arms with this dude. Now, if you can imagine a shorter Colin Kaepernick with a little bit darker skin, but still have the big afro and the dashiki shirts, if you catch what I mean. That was this guy who walked in with Miss BB. And obviously, it caught my attention because I'm looking, it's like, is this the guy? And she was just showing him around, talking about, yeah, this is such and such, really seeing him and whatnot. And so I'm just curious as in regards to, okay, what's so special about this guy? And I guess during this jamming session, he had like some type of poem that you could say was pro-black eccentric. And so he goes onto stage and he does his presentation. And Miss BB, I tell you, she was like hot butter on a knife. girl was just melting. The dude could just say yappa dabba doo, and she would think that this dude just won the Nobel Peace Prize. And so I was just befuddled. I was like, what did this dude got that I don't got? Like, what is it about him that makes him so special in his eyes? And so I try not to let it foster in my mind the whole night, but obviously it was still there. And you could say that was the start of the ticking bomb. So fast forward a few weeks later, I haven't talked to Miss BB in a while. And one morning, she sent me a text message asking if I could give her a ride to school, to the university. And it was at that point where the ticking bomb went off. And I was like, why would you message me about bringing you to school when you have this pro-black daishiki boyfriend who could take you to school? And it was at that point I just went off. It's like, you know what? I'm just done going after these type of girls. I'm just done just chasing girls in regards to thinking, you know, they want the same thing I want and not getting anything in return. It was just a complete eruptions of emotions. You could say that's when I had my red pill rage. So it was at that point where I pretty much just like, you know what, screw all this. I just don't want to deal with these women. They all the same. They all act the same and whatnot. Just take it or leave it. Don't bother me with it and everything. And so it was kind of at this time where I've started going online and checking out videos in regards to why women do this, why women say that and everything. And you could say that's where I started to get into some well-known figureheads as far as black YouTubers who will talk about these issues. One being Tommy Sotomayor, the other being Sergeant Willie P, and then David Carroll. That's when I really started to really get acquainted with some of the red pill stuff, when I started listening to David Carroll videos. And it is some hardcore stuff. In fact, if I was to say his materials back then, this is back in 2012, his materials back then were a lot more hardcore than they are today. They may have slowed down a little bit, but definitely his message was still consistent even to this day. And so that was my red pill moment, red pill rage and everything. So for the next 3 years, it was just kind of, I was just doing my own thing. Didn't really care about relationships. Didn't care about women, girls for that matter. Just was strictly focusing on myself, focus on school, get it out the way. But 3 years later, one of my buddies, a Korean, he actually invited me to a culture event at my university. So for me, it's like I've already had a little interest in Japanese culture. And so it was like, okay, let's go here and see if I can meet some Japanese people who can tell me a little bit more about Japanese culture. So I go there and we go to the East Asian cultural side, and we go to the Japanese booth. And it is a big crowd there and all, but my Korean friend, he introduced me to some of his Japanese friends who were part of this group. And this was kind of like my first ever exposure to Japanese people from Japan and just getting to know them, introducing myself and all, just getting acquainted with them. And then that's when I met her. Her being Miss Yuki. Miss Yuki now being my ex. So when I saw Miss Yuki, I was like, huh. Wow, she's pretty. She's pretty. It was something about her with her energy that just kept drawing me to her. But little did I know that she was also being drawn to me too. So we started talking. She started telling me about herself, her hometown of Hiroshima, and asking about my background, things that I like to do, hobbies and all. And so I could just tell something was building up between us. It felt like our energies was bouncing back and forth between us. So I just mustered up the courage to be like, hey, Miss Yuki, how about we meet up over lunch and kind of get to know each other a little bit better? And she was kind of shocked but excited at the same time. She was like, really? Yeah, let's do that. Let's meet up. So we planned for the following week. We go meet up. We first meet up at the library before we walked over to a restaurant on campus. And when she came to meet up with me, I kid you not, I wish I had a picture of the gift. But she came with this gift wrap. And it was just nicely wrapped up with a little bow tie and everything. And she was like, this is for you. And I was like, wow, really? She's like, yeah. Open it up. So I opened it up and it's authentic Japanese candy. I was like, wow, how'd you get these? She's like, oh, well, my parents, they send me gifts and all items from Hiroshima. And I wanted to give you something that could remind you of my hometown and also kind of remind you of me. And I was taken aback because I was like, wow, you went out of your way to get me something from your hometown, from Japan all the way to here. And she was like, yeah, I really like you and I want you to think highly about me. And it was at that point where I just had another awakening. It was at that point that I realized the problem with the relationship dynamics here in America, and you can even say, to be more specific, for black men who have relationship problems here, the problem isn't the women. The problem is the culture. And so it was from that point that I started doing some research like, okay, are there other brothers who have relationships like the one that's developing between me and Miss Yuki? So I go online, looking up questions and videos, and that's when I started to see videos by Mad Bus Driver in regards to SYSBM. And a little bit later on, I started seeing videos from my eventual co-host, Kirigakure Jones, and he was my first ever knowledge base of black men in a relationship with a Japanese. So it was at that point where I finally realized that, yeah, this is the path that I'm on. And this is the path that I've chosen for myself. Now, the concept of SYSBM has existed long before it became an acronym. But this is where I realized, yeah, This is who I am. This is where I could truly be myself, and this is where I could find others who appreciate who I am. So me and Yuki, we dated for a couple of years and all, but then she had to go back to Hiroshima, and unfortunately, that being a long distance relationship and me being my first for the first time, it didn't end well, but we just mutually decided to go our separate ways. And it was at that point that a few months later, I got a chance to meet Miss Kagome. And me and Kagome, we hit it off, and we are here today because of it. So, with that story, what am I getting with that? But before I do that, let me check the chat real quick. D-Max says, that's a heck of a red pill moment. Yes, indeed, sir. Yes, indeed. Isaac Sama says, a lot of older guys failed younger ones by not telling them the truth because we're biologically in opposition. There's no way we can have the same goals for the most part. Absolutely. Absolutely. And to be honest, there's some things that I wish some of the older gentlemen, including my dad, would have told me about. But hey, they have their goals. We younger guys, we have our goals. It is what it is. Young Swift, screw asking for validation. Okay, young sir, I got you. See. Shout out to you, good sir. Masculinity, good to see you as well. So, what am I getting with this story? So, I've been hearing some brothers lately who are kind of, they're in this loop. And what I mean by this loop is they feel that the image of black men here in America is hurting them so that it's reducing their opportunities elsewhere, and it's causing their opportunities for better job prospects, better business opportunities, social opportunities, relationship opportunities. They feel that because the black male's image here in America is truly negative, that it has this gigantic impact on the rest of the world. And essentially, when one does bad, we all do bad. And I want to counteract that by saying that, one moment. All right. So, what I counter that by saying is only you can control your image. You can't control someone else's image. And it goes back to what I talk about in regards to external validation. Wanting to have validation from outside sources. The thing is this: if you build your foundation on something external, as easy as it is to build it, it's also easy to destroy it. And I know I got a series going on talking about reflections of the inner man. I'm definitely going to get that back to going, especially now that we're able to travel a little bit more here in the U.S. I already have plans this summer to go to specific places and do more recordings in regards to reflections of the inner man. But when I talk about basing your entire existence on external factor, that is truly deadly. And don't get me wrong, it's also easy to get caught up into it. Because if you look at the media and you look at the troubles and tribulations that other black men go through or may have brought upon themselves. That's a subject for another day. But the things that they do that's caught by the media. And you look at that and you can easily get caught and be like, well, they have the same skin tone as me. They look like me and everything. They come from a cultural background as me. So if they're doing bad, then it looks bad on me too. And it's going to be hard for me to really get by in life because I reflect off of what those other men are doing. And I'm here to tell you that's completely false. If you're basing your existence off the image of someone else, you're doomed to be a victim. But over here, we don't preach victimhood. We don't preach victim mentality. And so if you build yourself from within and you control your image, that's where you will truly go far and beyond in this life. And so what I'm getting at is this. You can't control how other people see you, but you can control how you view yourself. And you also have control of choosing people who view you in the same light as you view yourself. This is why SYSBM is truly about freedom of choice, freedom of association. If some guy just feels like all of black men are just ghettos and no good, sure, he is entitled to his opinion. My question is, why would you want to be associated with a person who views you in that way? And not just men, it goes for women too. If a woman truly feels that all black men are the same, that there's nothing good about them and all, hey, she's entitled to her opinion. My question again is, why would you be associated with that woman, with that type of person? Again, you cannot control how people view you, but you can control how you view yourself, and you can control being associated with other people who view you in the same light. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And to kind of give you another example, I shared this in the interview with Chuck Johnson that we interviewed on the Black Ronins. I never forget when I was in Tokyo and I was on my way to the graveside of Isoroku Yamamoto. And I happened to meet this elderly gentleman who was sweeping outside of his shop. I stopped to talk to him to make sure that I was going in the right direction of the cemetery. And we started talking, small talk and everything. Come to find out, this gentleman, he is in his 90s. And he was telling me that I am the second black person he has ever met in his life. The first black person he ever met, he met a GI soldier when he was just a little boy back in the 40s. That was the last time he talked to a black person or ever seen a black person. But we had such a small talk, and the conversation was good and everything. He was telling me how it's great that he gets a chance to talk to another black person, and my personality and my way of how I conduct myself, he admired that. And he thinks very highly of black people because of that. So here it is an older gentleman in his 90s. I have only talked to one or two black people in his entire life so far, me being the second. And just based off of that interaction, he thought very highly about me. And that's just one story. I have other stories where, especially with some of my Japanese friends, I was literally the first black man, let alone black person, they have ever met in their entire lifetime. All the other black persons that they saw either came from movies, televisions, or something they read in a book. And my interactions with them just completely changed their whole dynamic of how they saw black folks. One Japanese friend in particular, he was telling me how, you know, when he first thought of black folks, he thought about the ones that he sees in movies that are troublemakers, that would kind of be the bad boys and everything, and the whole 9 yards. And he told me, he was like, Sigma Jones, since I met you, my whole thought process of black people and black men changed forever. You showed me that not all black people act like they portray in movies, in TVs, and whatnot. You really changed that whole dynamic for me. Again, which proves the point that only you can change the image of yourself. You control your image. I can't control Aizen Sama's image. I can't control D-Mac's image, Ace's image, Edward Bailey's image. None of these guys in the chat, I can't change their image or alter it. But Sigma Jones, that I can. All right. So yeah, when it comes down to Sigma Jones, I can control that image. I can control how somebody sees me. And still, yes, there will be some folks that no matter how much you prove to be the opposite of the stereotype, they've already have it set in their ways and in their mindsets that no matter what, you're still a stereotype. And you're still somebody who should be viewed negatively. And you know what? That's fine. That's on them. My thing is this. I don't have to be associated with you. And the cool thing about it is, for every one of those negative people, I can go to 5, 6, 7, 8 more people who don't think like them, who actually view me in a positive light. Those are the type of people I associate myself with. Those are the type of people who view me the same way that I view myself. Again, freedom of choice, freedom of association. So I'm just going to look through the chat real quick. William says, exactly. I'm not connected to any role personalities regardless of how they look. Phenotype-based identity is a weak cultural worldview to begin with. Exactly. D-Mac says, this is why I mentioned inside-out approach, so you could develop your image and not let society put their negative black male stereotype on you. Exactly so. Exactly so. William says, Greeks and Turkish folks have similar phenotypes, but they will also make sure to let you know that they're not related to each other. Indeed. Indeed. And so again, if you're worrying about the image of black men in regards to how that reflects on you, you're going about it the wrong way. Only you can control your image. Only you can decide how people are going to view you. And that's the thing. This is why when I made that stream talking about a man of culture, and I talk about how that ghetto mindset is not going to work in other cultures, here's the truth about it. When it comes down to black men, we really have to be the masters of adaptability. And that's really how I started this YouTube platform, with the video back of last year talking about adaptability. Specifically for black men, we have to be masters of adaptability. And the thing about adaptability that doesn't get talked about, you got to be able to swallow your pride. You got to be able to put your ego to the side. Especially when you have a greater goal in mind for yourself, ego has to be checked at the door. Because when it comes to adaptability, when you're able to blend in with other cultures, when you're able to be productive in society, again, we're talking about self-image. We're not talking about the collective image of black men. We're talking about controlling your image. When you're able to adapt to other cultures, that's when you will start to see the true positivity of who you are as a man. That's when you will truly get to see what it's like to be a man of culture, where other cultures appreciate you, not for your skin color, not for what you can or can't do, but they appreciate you for who you are from within, that foundation you have built up within yourself. Like, if my future self was to go, if I was to go back in time and I was to talk to myself back in high school, a senior, and I told my younger self, Sigma Jones, in the next decade or so, you're going to become a sensei of a Japanese drumming organization, and you're going to become an ambassador of black men within Japanese culture. If I was to tell my younger self that, I probably wouldn't believe it. I probably would think you're smoking on something. But again, that just comes from a process of growth and maturity, and understanding that there's more to life than just black and white. Exactly. My co-host Logic Finder says, if you define yourself by predetermined criteria, you already lost. That right there. Again, it comes down to your self-image. Only you can control how others view you. And only you can decide how others see you. Again, I'd much rather be associated with people who think like me and who view me in the same way I view myself than to be associated with people who may share the same phenotype, but they don't agree with the things that I agree with. They don't look at life the same way I look at life. And so again, the story that I mentioned earlier, that with Miss BB and Miss Yuki, not only does it play a role from a cultural standpoint, but it also plays a role when it comes down to association, when it comes down to how you can control your image. You cannot control anyone's image but yourself. When it's all said and done, that is what matters at the end of the day. Because again, and I'm not going to highlight a particular individual or anything, but there's some people that I see on the news, some black men that I see on the news, when I see the situations that they caught themselves in, I have to ask myself, would that situation repeat itself if it was me? And not trying to sound mean or anything, but the chances of those situations happening, at least for Sigma Jones, is very, very low. And that's because I don't look at things from a guilt point of view, from a victim mindset. And so for that matter alone, again, shout out to the brothers that inspired this particular stream, but for that matter alone, it is important that you don't try to control your image for external factors. You don't try to control your image just so you could be liked by everybody, just so you can, so to speak, be a people's person. You control your image for yourself. Let the chips fall where they will fall. And if there's people who still view you in a negative light, again, perfectly fine. Just don't associate yourself with them. Learn to walk away. Learn to put yourself on a pedestal. Learn to take your considerations in higher standings and higher standards, compared to others. Now, there's going to be some people that will be like, well, Sigma Jones, my situation, I may be stuck in this, I may be stuck in that. How can I possibly work myself out of it or get myself out of it? Well, the only thing I can tell you is this. It starts with the mind. The mind is supreme because everything from the mind is supreme. What happens above, so goes below. Now, only my co-host Logic Finest would know what I'm talking about. But it really does start with the mind. How you view yourself is how you're going to be able to change how others view you. Is everybody going to see you the same way? Absolutely not. But that's where freedom of choice comes in. The people who view you in the same light, those are the people you want to continue to build positive foundations. Those are the people you want to be sure that they continue to spread your image in a positive light. And believe me, the people that I have met, both here in America and overseas, who think along the same lines as I do, when they... Oh, thank you, sir. The first of the 7 Hermetic principles, the law of mentalism. All is mental because mental is supreme. Thank you, sir. But what I was getting at is the ones that I associate with here in America and overseas, because they think along the same lines as I do, when they talk to their friends or family about me, all of a sudden it's just like a ripple effect. More and more people want to find out about Sigma Jones. More and more people want to be associated with Sigma Jones. And honestly, I'm not doing that to be popular in anything. But again, it shows how like minds think alike. When you associate with people who want to be associated with you, that's when you know you have a lot going on in your life. That's when you know you are much bigger than what any media can portray about you. All right. Let me check the chat real quick. King Sigma, good to see you, sir. Logic Finders. You literally have the power to create the reality you want to see, or keep arguing in circles about useless topics and endless debates, accomplishing nothing of substance except hot air. Exactly. Exactly. It comes a point in time where you gotta put up or shut up. If you care about the image of black men, here's what I will say. If you want to see change in regards to the image of black men, why don't you be the change? Why don't you take the first step and be the definition of what you truly want to see in the image of a black man? It all starts with you. And when it starts with you, then you can control how people see you. And when you start to associate with people who want to be associated with your image and how you portray yourself, that's where you'll start to see change. You can't change everybody, but you can definitely change yourself. Oh, boy. Eisen. Oh, boy. I tell you what, because we got some time, let me go ahead. I'm not going to keep this up too long, but I do see a few of my fellow compatriots in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and send you guys the link, and we can kind of talk more about this beforehand. JJ Wilson, I'm going to send you the link too, sir, if you want to come up. Good to see you. Let's see. Let me do this real quick. All right, so for those individuals, I did send you the link. So if you have time, you want to come up, you could definitely feel free to come up to kind of talk more about changing the image of black men, or to be more specific, changing your image as a black man. Because again, we're not out here to try to change the image of all black men. You can only change your image. You can only have people to view you in a different light. And again, if some people still see you as a no good, negative person, so be it. As long as they stay away from you and you stay away from them, all the merrier. But for every negative person like that, you'll find tens of more positive people who want to be associated with your image. That person, or those people, I'm more than happy to be associated with them. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Indian, doesn't matter. Those people want to be associated with me, I'm more than happy to be associated with them. So, Mr. JJ Wilson, how's it going, sir?
Hey, how's it going, Sigma?
Pretty good, man. I want to give a shout out to you because you actually were one of the ones that inspired this impromptu stream. I really want to talk a little bit about the image of black men and how only you can control your image and who you associate your image with.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, it's been funny because I've been looking at not just yourself, but also Chris Owens, and I don't know if Phantom Clutch is here, but saw a couple of videos from him, and even Rolando G. And on my video, it's called JJ Star Wars Corner, right? Episode 10 on my channel, and I touched on passports and the importance of just going overseas and just seeking out what you want and what you desire for yourself, and not paying too much attention to what the critics have to say, right? Because they're always going to have things to say. So forgive me if I just got on the stream, so I
Yeah,
missed
not a
out on a
problem.
lot of what you said because I was in the middle
Yeah,
of playing basketball outside.
yeah, not a problem.
Yeah,
And be sure to post your channel in the chat room as well, because I also want people to check out the video that you did in talking about image of black men. Because again, that's what kind of inspired this impromptu stream. Because it's like I want to kind of highlight more of what you was talking about, how you know you need to be associated with people who think along the same lines as you. If you get caught up in what the media says and everything, you're gonna go nowhere. And so I really wanted to highlight those talking points that you really hit it out on that video.
right, right. Because it's funny. Over the course of the week, I had texts from a lady from she's Taiwanese, right, from Taiwan originally, and she has a family here now. And she used to take martial art classes with us, but she kind of stopped, especially with the pandemic going on. So I haven't seen her in like a year and a half, actually
Mm.
well before the pandemic. But she texted me out of the blue, and she's like, JJ, you really inspired me to keep going in martial arts, even though I haven't seen her and I have no idea what she's been doing. But we've been going back and forth, and this woman basically just told her like, what keeps you motivated, JJ? Why do you keep doing what you do? As far as training is concerned. And I told her, well, if your heart's not in it anymore, there's really no reason to do it. But if your heart is still in it, then keep going and don't pay attention to what people have to talk to you about, like criticizing and things like that. So I just try to give her a pep talk, like words of encouragement. And it's people like that I want to be associated with, especially when I travel overseas, because I've also told that I want to eventually start traveling again, especially when this pandemic is over.
Yeah, right on with that. Shout out to Doc Phoenix in the chat room. Good to see you, sir. And King Sigma, good to see you as well. Thanks for stopping by.
Hey, what's up, bro? Good Sunday to you, the brother on the panel and the viewers. Um, Definitely a good topic, something that I always like talking about. I think that we get so caught up in the racial aspect of things and the gender aspect that we miss the cultural part. And I think that the cultural part is the most important part because culture is the foundation for social outcomes. So whatever the values and the mission statement of a society that is upheld, that will tend to produce a certain kind of outcome. So when you're talking about black men in 2021, I believe a lot of black men are starting to see that the best option for them is to focus on creating their own cultural paradigm and aligning themselves with people that may already have the cultural paradigm that they want and not worrying so much about the position that America has placed many black men in. We see it on the news. We see it every day that black men have become a proxy for other groups to benefit from, and also utilities for people that actually hate black men. So I'm all for black men creating their own individual culture, and then obviously when you bring groups of individuals with the same mindset together, that's where you get like a social culture. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, that's where, again, like minds think alike. If you want to see the change that, at least for your reality, it has to start with you. And then once you start that change, the next step is be associated with people or individuals who want to be associated with that image or that change that you want for yourself. Not for everybody else, but at least for yourself. And I think more and more there's starting to be a small sector of black men who are starting to understand that, who are starting to understand that you can't rely on the outside influence to change for you. If you want to see change, you got to start from within. And If the outside world still doesn't want to be associated with you, that's fine. But what's so great about the outside world, it's so big and so mass that you can find the culture, or you can find the group of people who want to be associated with your image, who want to be associated with who you are as a person, let alone as a man. And you could go and thrive in those cultures. And this is why I say adaptability requires putting your ego to the side, requires to swallow your pride, because once you're able to build and thrive in other cultures, which, this whole myth about other cultures are not accepting of you and everything, that's just a complete lie and everything. When you're a man of culture and you have proven to yourself, not to the world, but you've proven yourself that you are who you are as a man of culture, other people and other groups want to be associated with you. And so if you can't buy into that, then that tells me that you want people to change themselves for you. That's not how the world works. You change yourself and you be associated with the people who want to be associated with you.
One of the things that I've been trying to point out when I talk about cultural capital is that I've been keeping a database. I started a database a couple months back looking at what success looks like from a mating standpoint and how that creates cultural outcomes. And one of the things that I notice is that as I continue to add different founders of different businesses, firms, and startups, it's a trend that's pretty much consistent. One of the things that stood out about Silicon Valley, when you looked at the startup founder, their father and their mother, it was such a similar story, right? So the most recent startup founders that I had added to my list was Mark Lorre. Have you guys heard about Mark Lorre before?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah. So, he started Jet.com, he sold Jet.com for, a big amount of dollars to Walmart. And now he and Alex Rodriguez represent a group that just bought the Minnesota Timberwolves from Glenn Taylor. And that was about $1.5 billion. So I was looking into the background of Mark Lorre. And again, very typical of Silicon Valley guys. His father was a computer software entrepreneur, and his mother was a health and fitness trainer to the Hollywood stars. So she worked on fitness aspects with the actresses all throughout Hollywood. Think about that for a moment. So you got one guy, he creates like a business, his father, based on computer software. And this is back in the 70s and 80s, right? So he's already gotten a head start for this big cyber boom of the last 20 years. So his father was already at the forefront of that. Now he connects with a woman her whole thing is looking good, being fit, and training other women to love their bodies and be healthy. So for me, just looking through the database that I've been building the last few months, it becomes clear to me the importance of how a man chooses a woman and a woman chooses a man and the kind of offspring that they will produce. So when the Sisbon brothers talk about quality stargates, this is not something that can be understated, because the future depends on our mating behavior of today. And Mark Lorre, the new owner of the Minnesota Timberwolves, is a perfect example of how consistent this is. Because I got a whole list of about 30 of these founders so far. And it's just like every time I add someone, it's the same story, bro. How they mate,
Yeah. To me, when MBD says that who you date is politics, to me, that's an understatement. It literally comes down to genetics. And I think for a lot of black men, they're still reluctant to embrace that concept, because once you go down that rabbit hole that genetics matter when it comes down to building generational wealth, when it comes down to passing on your legacy to the next generation, there's going to be a lot of women who don't qualify, and especially a lot of American women in that regard, no matter what race or background they come from, if they don't heed to what you're looking for in regards to starting your own family. I'm talking specifically about you as a man. You want to have your lineage from scratch, your own biological children. When it comes down to that matter, it's going to be a lot of women who simply do not qualify in being worthy of passing on your genetics. So that's why a lot of black men, they're okay with just, well, if the world sees me at this, I'm just going to go with it and all. I'm not going to change myself. I'm not going to really develop who I am and everything because, so to speak, I just want to deal with people who look like me or come from some debauchery background and all. In other words, trying to fit in. And again, I'm just like, if that's who you want to be, fine. But I'm not going to be associated with that.
I reject the quantity argument completely. It's something that I don't, I think that American black men have been hoodwinked on this issue, where so many of us have been brought up to think that it's all about quantity. So if you deal with low tier women, low vibration women, and you can get a lot of them, that's good. But yet the results that we see for the black majority is unbelievably bad. So for me, I'm always rooting against the quantity argument, and it should always be about quality. So I don't care if 99% of women are unqualified, as long as the one that's around me is qualified. I don't care if you have to go through 1,000 rejections. That's up to the females. Their responsibility to produce feminine women and cooperative women that can be fit into a man's life and supplement his lifestyle of a productive and constructive man. That responsibility falls on her mother, her father, and herself. It's not my job as a man to build a woman up. My job is to create an environment where she can be as feminine as possible, as cooperative as possible, and be a woman that presents an example by which I would want a daughter to mimic and a son to feel nurtured in. That's what my responsibility is, to create that. Her mother and father and her relatives have to get her to a basic level of femininity and a basic level of understanding how to cooperate, which comes a lot from watching the interactions between the men and women in her own family. And then the fitness and the health as well comes from her same family. So that's just where I'm at with it, bro. Like, I'm not worried about what the 99% of black people on the planet are doing. I don't care. I'm worried about being the best version of myself every day. And then for me, my belief is that you'll continue to attract the kind of women that qualify. 99% may not qualify, but I'm okay. I'm not, as long as I'm breathing, I'm okay.
Yeah, indeed. Well, speaking of the importance of genetics and everything, Aizen Sama, glad to see you, sir. I know Big, you definitely talk about this a lot behind the scenes and everything, but you and I both share the agreement that pretty much there needs to be separation. And if that separation means that 99% of Black America is no longer of good use, hey, so be it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Hopefully, I'm not too loud or too wrong here. I'm not at home with my mic where I can kind of control things better. But thanks for having me up, and salute to everyone else on the panel, JJ and Sigma, King Sigma.
What's going on?
Nothing much. But yes, I do agree. Genetics, I mean, whenever I cover my content with the Bible, everything that's outlined as far as with the lineage, it's all about genetics and who actually showed something throughout their track record as well to be able to be a part of that lineage. Because when you look into it and you look into Ruth, who her line was thrown out until she came in, who ended up being, I think, David's great-great-grandmother. According to the scripture, God wanted nothing to do with her genetics, but she showed something in herself to put herself apart from the others, as you talked about whenever you went to Japan and showing yourself apart from what they had seen of black men on TV and everything else. She shows something to have herself apart, for her to be a worthy mate, to be a part of that genealogical bloodline. Um, Everything that that we have, that we believe, well, I won't say believe, that we idealize with our structure and our standard, Sigma, it just shows that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you highlight that point, because even in that case, because see, I'm just gonna call it like I see it. Black folks have a huge ego problem, and
Yes.
they want to be liked by everybody. And to me, that's where it's essentially to the point of, if you're trying to be liked by everybody, then you're doomed to fail, because you can't change what someone thinks of you, but you can decide for yourself who you associate with someone who actually wants to be associated with you. And I think if blacks were to start thinking along those lines, they may possibly start to progress more in society. But I mean, that still requires some form of eugenics to even come to that type of understanding.
Yes, I agree as well. It's all about that. You have to separate people of whose common core codes and conduct and structure aren't aligned. You can't be together. Um, I'm not a liar. I'm not a thief. I'm not a murderer. So I'm not going to hang out with them. We don't have anything in common for us to hang out with each other. People have to, before they figure out who they want around. Some people can figure out before who they actually want around them, what they want to be themselves. And those people, then they already are shown who they can have around them.
Yeah, absolutely. JJ, your thoughts?
Well, I agree on all points with most of you guys there. And just to kind of further drive what you guys been saying about hanging out with people that think like you and share the same values and morals as you. The same woman that wanted to give me, words of encouragement and give me her thoughts on trying to get back into martial arts. She's the very same person that gave me the fake Japanese sword that I've been using to do my forms with. See, so once you earn that trust from different cultures of people, I mean, it can go a long way, and it will do things for you that it would totally blindside you. It'll be things like giving you presents or giving you a souvenir, something that not only that you can use to help you as a person, but it's something to remember them by. It's like a memento. So that's something I'll definitely keep for as long as I can, as long as I continue to train.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, that's where, again, it just comes down to, if you want to see change, you have to be the change. And then the people who want to be associated with you, they're going to expand your image even more so. And so, like you rightfully pointed out, JJ, that, you know, the the people you're associated with, they're concerned about your well-being. They're concerned, if everything's going right with you, and they're willing to go above and beyond just for you. Now, that's because
Mm-hmm.
they see you in the same light as you see yourself. And I think that's just something to where, I think for a lot of black men, we need to come to terms with the fact that just because we share the same phenotype does not mean that your struggle is my struggle. Just like Isaiah, I think you mentioned it, how, you're not a thief, you're not a murderer, you're not a drug dealer and everything. I, excuse me, I can't understand or associate with somebody who does those things, because that's just not me. And the people that associate with me, they don't also do the same things. And so, as a black man, if you're concerned about the image of black men, again, only you can control your image. Only you can be that focal point of, hey, I can't change the image of all black men, but I can definitely change the image for myself. And I can definitely be associated with people who can see that difference in regards to how black men are viewed. But it requires a lot of self-discipline. It requires a lot of self-reflection, which I mentioned it in your stream. A lot of people, not just black men, but just a lot of people in general, they are afraid of self-reflection. And so they much rather base their whole existence on something that is external, which essentially you're just easy sheep for the slaughterhouse.
I mean, I think one of the things about getting so caught up in sociology and making that the foremost, um, subject on your mind on a daily basis is a very bad situation for you as an individual if you get caught up in that rabbit hole. For the simple fact that we're living in this age of Aquarius, the fourth industrial age, and things are moving very quickly. Something I try to do each week, Sunday is a very reflective day for me, and I'll try to go back and look at some kind of important article on either business or either news from the week, and then it kind of go into a meditative phase for me. But this morning I read an article in Forbes, and it was talking about the Gemini exchange, crypto exchange. And this exchange was created by the Winklevoss twins. And a lot of people know the Winklevoss as the original creators of Facebook. So those that know the story, the Winklevoss were at Harvard. They hired Mark Zuckerberg to create this social network. Mark Zuckerberg said, damn, this is a good idea. I'm taking this for myself. So, Mark Zuckerberg ended up creating Facebook based off of he was actually under contract with the Winklevoss twins. So he ended up paying them $65 million, which is peanuts because, that it's worth like 70 billion today, I believe. But they ended up taking that money and they started to look into like Bitcoin and crypto. They didn't know anything about Bitcoin or crypto, but someone who knew about it, but didn't have the funding that told them about it. So they said, let me get in on this. Now I believe they're worth maybe like 10 billion because they got in on Bitcoin back when Bitcoin was like $7 or $8. And at the time they bought like 10 to $12 million worth of Bitcoin. Now we know that just Monday, Bitcoin was selling for like $50,000 or something. And they're predicting by the end of the year that it's going to go up to 300K. Now I was reading this interview, and they weren't talking about what had happened yesterday and even what they were doing today so much. Their focus was on what's coming tomorrow. So they got into talking about Bitcoin lending, non-fungible tokens, NFT artwork, the decentralizing of social networks, all these concepts that are not even here yet, but they're actually moving on to the next thing already. People are paying millions of dollars for NFT artwork right now. So you got way too many people focused on the sociology aspect that they can't control, because you can only really control what you do and what anyone that's in your family is doing with you and how you interact with your environment. And when you talk about the mating, you have the power to choose the partner that you want to bring into your paradigm. But what I'm saying is that right now, bro, the people that are at the front of the curve, they're talking about things that I don't ever hear about in this Black YouTube space. Crypto and Bitcoin is old news now because all the real money that will be made is owned by banks, crypto startups, and a few individual really rich people. Because again, you got to get in before things boom. You had to get in with Bitcoin before it hit $10. At the point that now we're at, 50,000 plus per share, very, very few brothers got the kind of liquidity to even take that risky investment. It's too risky. So you have to be at the forefront of what's coming next. And you do that by exercising the discipline that you mentioned, but also by being moderate in your consumption and your lifestyle, having some integrity and fortitude, and being someone that pursues both knowledge, wisdom, and then practical wisdom. That's my thought on that. That's where I think things should go moving forward. So the concentration of when you got 90% of black men talking about the sociology, you're not going to go anywhere as a group. Yes, there needs to be people putting out information on the sociology aspect, but do you need, if there's 10 men in a room and that's just one area of human activity, do you need all 10 focused on that one area? No, because the groups that are dominating are controlling the economic area of human activity, the political area, but especially the economic and the technology areas. So while you're talking about just the sociology, these other groups are moving into whole nother stratospheres of earnings. That's my thought.
No, spot on. I
Yeah.
I agree, and that's where well, the conversation needs to be changed. Um, Too many channels just kind of focus in on what issues going on as far as the social dynamics, and to me, other societies are far and away from social dynamics. It's more about, okay, what can you do to solidify yourself, and if you're a family guy, solidify your legacy for generations to come. That's what their whole talking point is all about. And so that's where I'm laying the foundation to say, you as a black man, stop worrying about what other black men are doing. Stop worrying about how some dude's image is somehow affecting you. Focus on yourself, focus on your image, be associated with people who want to be associated with you. Once you have that foundation laid out, then you need to now focus on, okay, where can I start solidifying my legacy? Because that's where other people, other cultures, and other mindsets, that's where they're going from. Before we continue, shout out to Isaac Sama. I know you had to drop off because of bad connection, but feel free to also drop your link in the chat box for people to subscribe to your channel. And King Sigma, same for you as well. Feel free to drop down your link in the chat box for others to subscribe, because there needs to be more change. And JJ, I was mentioning this on the video that you posted, that I think we also need to start having some more uh, um, I won't say hangouts, but I want to say we need to have some more consultations for black men who think along like us, but
Mm-hmm.
they may need some more help in direction of where to go or what to do. Those are the type of black men I want to be able to help. I want to be able to give them some guidance of, okay, well, you maybe want to look in this direction or that direction, or you may want to check these type of avenues and all. Because I think for a lot of men, especially the brothers that you did the video about, JJ, when you get too caught up in what the media says about you, you then become what you then become what they want you to become. They want you
Right.
to be, you know, this negative stereotype and everything. Not realizing that that's their image. That image is not associated with you.
Mm-hmm.
Be associated with other men who think like you. And those other men, we're more than happy to give them guidance on where to go, what to do, what avenue they should go to, what people they should be associated with. That needs to kind of be more of a dynamic going forward, because to me, I'm just, if I was going to put a number to it, I'll probably say at best 3% of black men are worth saving, or 3% of black men who think like us, we can get them out of the gutter that, you know, they can get themselves out of. But the other 98, 97%, sorry, bro, you're going to have to figure that out on your own.
Woo, that's slim pickings too, man. Wow. But yeah, I agree. Like, you just, as the last thing you guys need to have is a defeatist mentality. Just let anybody tell you what you can and can't do. I mean, that's the last thing you want to fall into. And that's usually how a lot of guys end up getting trapped in this country for whatever reason, whether it's finance, whether it's relationships, or even family drama. And for myself, I got a little bit of family drama, but I keep that disclosed. But I try to stay as far away from that as possible, just focus on myself and do the best that I can to get out of debt and stay focused on my job, and everything else will fall in line. And that's one reason why I'm so glad I hooked up with Ash the Man, and we do our Eternal Ventures podcast where we focus on video games and anime or anything else related to that, and we just share our viewpoints. Two of us bros, we just sharing our viewpoints on how we feel, how we dislike each cartoon or anime or movie, video game, whatever. And we have our little fan base now, and it's mostly gamers and things like that. But for the most part, we're creating our own space. We're pretty much having our own group. We're bringing like-minded people together and things of that nature. So I think in more guys, if you have YouTube channels, and if it's like a certain interest that you guys have, and it's not popular amongst Black America or Black YouTube, you might as well just go ahead and do it. Have fun with it, I say.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to give a shout out to Soul Provider Speaks if he's in the chat. He was the one that kind of coined a new term that I'm starting to circulate on my channel, and it's called Nerd Pill. And to me, I think for a lot of black men like us, we could associate with the term Nerd Pill. And to be honest, just like how you and Ash the Man, y'all definitely have a great series going on YouTube. I always try to check in every Friday night, even while I'm at work, because you guys have great content, and you all, talk about things that I think a lot of black men like us can associate and even kind of catch on. So
Right.
I personally believe like those type of channels need to be spread out and need to be given association, because that's where you start to draw more like-minded men and more like-minded black men. And even like for King Sigma's channel and all, he goes more into depth as far as the economics and some of the aspects that happens within America. And he also has a series, going on the more dark side of Swirl Mountain, which to me is a good documentary to kind of catch on to some things. But even that's more so of, okay, this is what black men should try to associate themselves with if they think along those same lines. If they don't think along those same lines, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, there's some channels that I used to follow back in the days. I had to cut them off because they were just going a direction that I simply couldn't follow. Is some directions that, sure, it may attract a lot of folks, but I can't relate to it. I haven't been in those situations per se, and I didn't want to be associated with that direction. So again, I think it's more so now coming down the lines of when you do that separation and you make it clear, especially if you're a content creator, this is who I am and this is what I'm all about. That's when you start to bring in more people who think along the same lines as you. And even if it's diverse, people from other groups and cultures, the fact of the matter is they want to be a part of who you are. And I think that's the message that is not being exemplified from a lot of content creators like ourselves.
Right. It's a lot. It's due to closed-mindedness. Forget about what those people are talking about. I'm just focusing on what we're doing, what we need to do, and stuff like that. And it's tunnel vision, basically. It's a lot of tunnel vision, not enough panoramic views of what's going on around you. And because they're not seeing for what's really going on, they end up slipping and they make mistakes. So yeah, it's very important that more of you guys that are listening today, if you feel like making new content, just go ahead and start, getting yourself out there to the world a little bit. It doesn't have to necessarily be what Black America's doing, but just bring out your own viewpoints of the world or your interests and showcase to it. Don't be nervous about it. You're gonna have critics. We certainly have ours on the Eternal Ventures podcast, even though they come off very childish. Me and Ash, we roll with the punches. We just roll with it. We troll them a little bit and things like that. But it's all fun. It's all fun. So yeah, that's kind of like my advice for guys listening to here today. So
it's so irrelevant to me at this point. Like I'm not even a person that is sitting there thinking about what the majority of black men are doing or the majority of black women anymore. I'm in this scenario where I've been living in the upper Midwest all my life. I've done spent some time on the East Coast and a little bit on the West Coast, but I'm going to be moving out of the upper Midwest probably in the fall. This whole COVID thing set me back because I was going to do a lot of traveling this year, but this COVID restriction has kind of set things back. But I'm making my move, definitely going west somewhere. I haven't picked the city yet, but I'm going to be traveling quite a bit after June. So for me, it's like I'm just looking for places that someone like me can just continue to thrive. I like mixed communities. I like seeing people of all different backgrounds. I've always been like that. I mean, when I was in high school, I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. I used to tell people all the time that once I got to college, I was gonna be like the United Nations of dating. And I like really used to tell my buddies this back in high school. I said, bro, wait till I get to college. I'm gonna be testing something from every nation and vibing with people from all the nations. And I ended up doing that, and I continue to enjoy that kind of environment. So I guess for me, I just kind of fit into a minority group that I'm always judging people by their character, by the similar interest, and how we vibe with each other. I'm just sick of the Black Ku Klux Klan, is what I call them, because as much as we talk about the white races that we know that exist out here in big numbers, no, there's not enough discussion about the Black Ku Klux Klan. I never understood why racism is okay for one group and it's not okay for another group. If you consider yourself a white supremacist, a black supremacist, an Asian supremacist, a Hispanic supremacist, to me, they're all the same. Their whole ideology is built on judging people by outside characteristics versus the inner person versus the potential of the person. I'm all about judging people by their what they can do, what they do. That's all I really care about. Their potential to do and what they're actually doing. All that other stuff just doesn't affect me as much as it does other people. And I'm a person that has really read a lot from the Black nationalist camps. I'm a big fan of Neely Fuller, big fan of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, but I took their information in a different direction than a lot of these fake Hotep communists do. I took it to mean that as a Black man, I have to establish a standard that's based on what I've already said to you guys about having integrity, fortitude, and being moderate and disciplined and pursuing wisdom. I feel like if Black men as individuals do that, that's going to create a whole different situation, man, because you're told so often by the spokespeople for the Black majority who are self-appointed, self-elected individuals, they're always telling you to sacrifice yourself for an illusionary herd, no benefits to you, no rewards to you, but because of your sacrifice as a real productive person and a constructive person, your gains become some kind of self-appointed spokesperson's gains because they don't have the talent to produce anything in the real world outside of racial politics and the sociology. And in order to do that, they have to keep the most productive and constructive Black men pumping into that system. But when they don't have your energy anymore to fuel their scams and their schemes, that's when the attention will be on what they don't produce. So I'm not going to play that collectivism, communist game with these people.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we wrap things up and all, definitely I wanted to highlight what you're talking about as far as, the supremacists, white, Black, Asian, Hispanic, they're all the same. This is why I put all of them in a category of tribalism. Tribalism for me is people who simply could not adapt to a changing world, and so they want to isolate themselves in regards to being stuck in an era or being stuck in some sort of time frame, and they want other folks to think along the same lines as them to be stuck in that same era or time frame. And this is why I tell folks, globalists are the ones who literally make the world go round, because they're the ones that are really pushing technology to be more expanded and to be more on the footprint for everybody else. And so when you have the mindset of tribalism versus globalism, I'm just of the belief that, hey, if you want to be tribalistic in regards to I only want to be associated with this type of people, that type of people. Everybody else is negative stereotypes and everything. Cool, that's fine. But if you're expecting the world to think along the same lines as your tribalistic mindset, good luck.
But even
Because,
that tribalistic, do you really believe that that's what they're doing? That's even what they're doing is not even tribalism, though. If you think about it, if you think about tribal, right, what a tribe is, tribes have a code and they have a jurisdiction. And then there's that third thing that is important as well. They're recognized by other tribes and nations as an existence, right? So those are typically the three things that are required of a tribe. Some kind of code that unites this group of individuals into a collective moving body. They have jurisdiction, they have legal standing, and they're recognized by other tribes and nations. So when you're talking about the fake hoteps and the fake communists, they have none of those things. Neither legal standing, jurisdiction, a code, or being recognized by the United Nations. You're talking about a lineage group when you're talking about American blacks, just a lineage. It's not about the phenotype. I know so many people from Africa that I associate with. They have the same phenotype as Native Black Americans, often a much more stronger Western African and Central African nations phenotype. But they have a totally different cultural orientation and the kind of values that they uphold. Specifically, I was telling a brother the other day that what I noticed with the women that I've dated from Africa, all down the line, they put family, education, and God in some kind of order as the most important thing to them as women. And when I asked them, like, who gave you these values, it always goes back starting with their family. So some put God, then family, and education. Some put the education and family. But those three things, for some reason, are always important to them. So I've come to the conclusion that those are the type of things that produce the kind of women that I'm attracted to. So this whole tribal thing, it don't really exist.
well, that's the thing. I call them tribalism because they put it like this. Tribalism is not civilization. Tribalism is just a small sector or group of people who function within their own little, I guess you would say, ecosystem. So when I compare tribalism to globalism, the whole pro-blacks and white nationalists and all these other type of hate groups and all, they're their own ecosystem that only exists because dominant society has allowed them to exist. Now, will they ever take over dominant society? We all know for a fact they won't. So they're not a true tribe, yes, in regards to like an actual tribe in Africa, South America, even some tribes like in the Himalayas, for that matter. But they try to function as if they're their own ecosystem when really they're just being allowed by dominant society to live in their own little bubble. So
See,
that's
I would
why
agree with you with the nationalist part. Like, see, what I would agree with you on is the nationalist part, but not with the Native Black American. I'll tell you why. The white nationalists can actually function with their own sub-economy. Sure, they have to deal with the macro economy, no doubt, but they actually do a better job of functioning as a micro economy and being self-sufficient than Native Black Americans. If you look at it, so the way that some white nationalists exist, many of them live out in rural areas where they buy up land, they own the houses, they employ each other, they sell and buy and trade with each other. Now that's on a small level, but I'm just saying they're at least doing that. When you talk about the Native Black American and you look at them as a collective group, how much land do they own? How many businesses in their own neighborhoods do they own? How much agency do they really exercise in society? What you're really talking about a group, if they're part of a tribe, then the Native Black American is a consumer tribe, a dependent tribe. And those are the kind of tribes that get wiped out just like that at a snap of a finger, because you look at who controls the water supply, the utilities, the agriculture, the administrative body. Show me where Native Black Americans have made any large inroads in those major areas that it would require to even be a self-sufficient micro tribe. At least with the white nationalists, they often are in a position that they employ each other and buy and trade with each other. And that's a big thing with them, is controlling the land and buying property. Because why? They don't want their perceived enemies living next to them. So in order to do so, they have to have covenants amongst themselves to buy up large, tracts of land. And they also have to be able to employ each other and trade with each other. So at least on a micro level, they're able to exist as some kind of sub tribe. But what I'm asking you is, in what way have you seen Native Black Americans do the same?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just gonna come out and say it. Black America, if you're gonna go to ADOS, doesn't really have a culture. Now, some are gonna argue and say, well, we did this or that. But have you done that outside of today's current culture? Or did today's culture allow you to develop those things? So you're right in regards to Black America. I still, like I said, put them in the mindset of tribalism because just like with nationalists and all, both want to relive the past. Both of them felt like the past is better than the future. Mm-hmm. And my stigma is either you get with the times or just get left behind. Because even the nationalists and everything, they only have so long to do their own little economy and whatnot before they too are eventually wiped out. They'll still be around much longer than so-called Black America, but eventually they will be taken care of too.
You think so? I'm not. I'm not necessarily convinced of that argument. I'm not based on my research. I think that more than likely, what will happen is that they will get what they want. Men like yourself will get what you want, and I think that those wannabe Black nationalists will get what they want. And I'm gonna tell you why I think that.
Well, I'm talking on a national scale.
Oh, I'm talking national scale too.
Well,
I think on a national, I'll give you my theory, and you can refute it. I'll tell you why. You ever heard of Yuri Bezmenov, the Russian professor and KGB agent that talked about how communism would infiltrate the United States? You ever heard of him?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. There's another professor that, if you've looked into Yuri Bezmenov's theory, he's another Russian named Professor Igor Panarin. He has the Panarin theory that he came out with like 20 years ago. He was also KGB with the Russians. He said that at the time he theorized that the United States would break up into like 6 regions, into some kind of loose confederacy, something like a European Union kind of scenario. At the time, people thought he was crazy, just like Yuri Bezmenov. But as we look at the cultural situation in America right now, it's clear that the polarization and the debt and everything that's going on with America, with China and with Russia, that based on the theory that you had about tribalism, right? I can see this country breaking into half, or even the quarters, maybe in the 6th. And I would suggest that everyone listening today, go read Igor Panarin's theory and then watch Yuri Bezmenov's videos. I'm telling you, it paints a very interesting picture. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but that's why it's a theory. Because a theory, you observe, you do experiments, you take notes, and you see if it matches up with reality. And what I'm telling you, because of how long ago is that they put those theories out there, I'm starting to see those theories come true. And I could see a scenario where like 80% of Blacks end up in their own kind of district. Then you have like the people that want to mix will probably have what you call like a neutral zone. The white nationalists will probably have a zone where they're at. I can see that happening, but you're saying you don't think so. And I'm saying that from history has taught us that all great empires die eventually. And we don't study enough the aftermath. So people will understand that societies rise and fall, but we don't study enough what happens in the immediate aftermath after a civilization collapses. The people just don't necessarily disappear. They are overtaken by other groups. Some leave, and then they create other situations. So based on your own tribal theory, what I'm saying is that guys like you are in the minority in Black America, and you're drowned out by the fake hotep, because again, remember, emotionalism is a good sell. Logic is always a bad sell, but a good constructive product. But it's a bad sell. The sales is all about emotions. So we have that 80% being sold this dream by all these spokesmen. So we want to break off into our own situation. And I'm telling you that this country is weaker today than I think it's been probably ever.
That point right there.
Probably since the
So,
Civil War.
yeah, that point right there. So, I do agree that I actually do see America becoming balkanized, where you're going to have different segments of the country literally break off and become their own thing. My thing is this: I just don't see the so called white nationalists suddenly becoming a powerhouse of a country right after the U.S. has been balkanized. And the reason why I say that is because you look at the white nationalists right now, there's nothing they could do to control the U.S. economy. These guys are literally hoping and praying for the whole country to collapse so that way, so to speak, they could take power. Now, do I see them balkanizing to where they'll have their own little part of the country where they can kind of do their own thing and become their own civilization? Sure, that's possible, and I think that's very high likely to happen. But do I see them suddenly rising to power to suddenly become, this the next version of Germany, the Third Reich? That I have a hard time seeing, and the reason why is because this is where technology comes into play, and this is what I had to tell another gentleman about this. Today's technology will not let you forget the history of the past, and so when you got people that will constantly remind you of the Holocaust, of the lynching, of the mob's features and everything, it's going to be very hard for a white nationalist country to suddenly become a powerhouse unless they just somehow able to control the message and the media. But when you got technology that has literally laid out a level playing field for everybody, and this is where it's like even for the so-called communism and everything, history shows us that communism on a national level simply has not have worked for any length of time for a country, and we can thank technology for reminding us that. So no, I'm not saying that won't happen.
Hold on. Okay, I agree with what you're saying on this, but here's a devil's advocate counter. You say the technology can be controlled by governing institutions. You can look at places like China, Russia, and Venezuela. To the extent that they want to, they're able to control a lot of the flow of information, a lot of the technology that their masses have access to. Governments can control that stuff if they want to. Even in the United States, the United States government. Yeah, what?
But only within their country. They can't control the message that is circulating from other countries and all.
They can control it entering their country, though. For example, China passed a rule not too long ago where they don't want any United States rap and pop culture in their country, and they're doing a pretty good job of stopping that. You saw the whole episode last year with TikTok in the United States. Even the United States said that they wanted to put more stronger measures on TikTok because it could be used as a spy mechanism. What I'm trying to say is that when you have a state that's very powerful and people get behind it, which is why I'm a libertarian, I want the state to have as little power as needed just for the basic necessities, security, strong infrastructure, but I want less power in the hand of big government. But we live in an age now where more people are willing to give lots of power to governments in exchange for quote unquote security. And what I'm saying is that the technology, it may look like it's open, but the governments can exercise a lot of control on Wi-Fi usage, internet access, blocking certain sites depending on how strong that government is. And what I'm saying is that, when you look at a decentralized money, there is a finite amount of it out there, right? Now, it sounds good, and it's good in a lot of ways, but think about this. With so few people having so much money, what's to stop a group of individuals with billions and billions of dollars? Like, what if they just monopolize the whole finite resource? Because again, it's not infinite, it's finite. So let's say there's 100 of such and such currency. Now, a small group of billionaires could get together and say, we're going to buy up that whole market. The only thing to stop them is the government and the people. And what I'm saying is that in our current age, the people give more and more of their power away to governments who ultimately are politicians that are controlled by the same small group that I'm referring to. There's nothing but the knowledge of the people and the will of the people to stand between the politicians, the corporate elites, and those that may have wicked means to control. That's all I'm saying. So when you look at something like Bitcoin, which is a finite, entity or whatever, what's to stop 20 billionaires or the richest billionaires getting together and saying we're going to buy up the whole Bitcoin market? The only thing to stop them is you, me, and others. But what I'm saying is that I don't think you or I represent the norm in 2021. In fact, I think that we're considered thought criminals. Everyone in this chat right now on this panel is a damn thought criminal in the eyes of YouTube, the public, and the government, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, we say anything on the contrary of what YouTube wants, they'll immediately ban us. So those are good points.
Yeah, those are definitely excellent good points. And that's where you just have to let the future play out. But while the future plays out, you as a black man, you still have things that you can still control within yourself. So forget about what's going on a national level. Forget about what's going on within your state, your city, or what have you. You can only control what you can do with your image and how you go about in life. And you can control which type of people you could be associated with. So when it's all said and done, you should be basing your existence within yourself, not from what some government tells you should think or what some government says you should do or not do. You should base your existence on yourself. And hey, freedom comes at a cost. And that's where you have to make the decision for yourself. Is the cost worth it, or would you rather just be part of the sheep? And so I think we'll wrap up with that. We'll go ahead and kind of start closing out. But King Sigma, definitely, sir, thanks again. Definitely enjoy having these conversations and all to kind of put some thoughts out there for people to kind of really get some things in their mindset of why they should start thinking for themselves and stop letting other folks control their image and whatnot. But, sir, definitely your final thoughts?
Are you speaking to me or Azen or JJ?
You, King Sigma.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I would just say that there's never been a greater time to be a black man on the planet, bro. Never. Since probably Mansa Musa. At least in the United States in the last 500 years, man. I mean, God, man. I sometimes I imagine that my grandfather, may he rest in peace, he had such a great work ethic, and I can only imagine what he could have done in a day like today. So that kind of keeps me motivated. But like I was telling you all earlier about the article about the Winklevoss and the crypto exchange, bro, they're coming out with new technologies every day. And in order to stay on top of that, you got to stay on top of the new business methods and the new technology that's coming out. And you got to put yourself in a position to exploit it. The skills needed to exploit the future are pretty standard now, and you can get most of it free online. I'm not here to push anyone to learn the new technology. I'm not here to push you to do anything. All I'm going to tell you is that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when all of us are in our 40s and 50s, a lot of brothers are going to be looking back saying, what if? I just don't want you brothers to be caught off guard saying, what if? There's never been a greater time in history to be a Western black male that I'm aware of. Technology is there. The opportunity is there. The economy is kind of in a pause scenario right now. But just think about it. Once everything gets up and running again, you will have missed one of the greatest moments. Today, they're saying that there's more billionaires being made than ever. There's more millionaires than ever in Western countries. But unfortunately, that knowledge has been spread to other countries where people are very hungry for an opportunity to compete. And they're hungry. So they don't even have the opportunity that you have. So with that, I would just say to the black men that are listening, it's on you. No one's coming to save you. And that's what SYSPM is about. Politically, economically, spiritually, and definitely sexually, no one's going to be dropping success in your lap. No one's going to put your interests first. You have to put your interests first. You have to create a standard The standard that works for Sigma Jones or JJ may not work for you. You're going to have to do the research. You're going to have to look at your own personality and your experience. Say, you know what? I need to have at least 5 to 10 principal ideas that creates a standard for me that will guide me through this wilderness called Western living. But with that, I'm chiming out, and thanks for having me, and you guys have a good weekend.
Oh, thanks again, King Sigma. Good to see you. And once again, he dropped his his channel in the chat. So definitely feel free to subscribe to him and all. But JJ, you as well, sir. You got the final floor.
All right, appreciate it. Yeah, definitely. Just to summarize what the great King Sigma said, because I'm such this channel as well. Basically, customize your life, guys. Live life as you see fit. As long as you obey the law, as long as you're not messing with people for no silly reasons, expect good things to happen for you. Definitely expect big things to happen for you, even if you least expect it. Kind of like with my situation that I talked about earlier with my friend from Taiwan. As long as you do good, as long as you're living life as you see fit, things will work out as best as they can for you. So with that said, I really don't have much else to offer. I kind of missed out on a lot of what you said, King, not King Sigma, but Sigma Jones and things of that nature. So yeah, thank you for having me. And hopefully we'll have more streams like this, because on my video, I did talk about we probably should hang out, like, if not on YouTube, but somewhere else privately. That way we can have more discussions like this in terms of travel and relationships and what's going on in the country, the good, bad, and the ugly. And maybe we can go from there. We can start building more networks and better friendships that way, and ignore all the BS that's out here.
Absolutely, man. And like I said, you and Xanatos, Phantom Clutch, and all y'all inspired this impromptu stream. I really wanted to kind of lay some foundation as to why I talk about culture matters, and why, as a black man, only you can control your image. And to me, that's where we can start laying that foundation of, okay, guys who think along the same lines as us, here's some avenues they can come to. They can come to your channel. They can come to Ash the Man channel. They can come to King Sigma, Aizen Sama, Morpheus that's in the chat. Shout out to him. Straight Shooter, myself. These are all avenues to where if guys are kind of stuck in the rut and figuring out what can they do for themselves, or where can they find more people, or men for that matter, that think along the same lines as us, they could come to us for those avenues, and we could kind of give them some pointers, some directions and all. But again, they're going to have to be the change that they want to be, or the change that they want to see. That should be the first foundation. You can't rely on anything external. You can't base your existence on something that's outside of your control. Do within yourself, and the world opens up. So definitely want to thank you again, JJ, for that video. And for sure, even myself, I'm planning to have some type of consultation later on. That, if brothers have some questions in regards to, World War II related stuff, or just some traveling, especially for Japan, for some reason, more and more brothers are asking questions about that, which to me, more than happy. But as far as those kind of brothers like us, who are not caught up in the dramas of Black America, who are not sit up here and look at the world from a black and white standpoint, for us, we could be those avenues for those type of guys. So again, just want to thank the listeners for listening in. JJ, is always good, sir. Pleasure to have you on here.
Oh yeah,
this
thank
is like
you.
I think it's like the first stream in a while that we both were on at the same time. So
Yeah, it's been a minute.
yeah. But with that said, definitely would like to thank everybody listening in, and definitely try to enjoy the replay. This will definitely be up. I've already sent out the streams for next month, the Black Ronins in the War Room. In fact, there might be another stream coming up where it's not Related to any of the series and all, but it's something that me and Dr. Phoenix, we will kind of do some talks about genetics and everything. So that's definitely coming down the pipe. But yeah, at the end of the day, brothers, you got to do what's right for you, do what's best for you. Just don't get caught up with what other folks think or say about you. Just be yourself, work on your image, you'll be all right. So, with that said, thanks for listening in. Till next time, this is the way.